Let's take you now, though, to Tehran for some live images where people have flooded the streets for the funeral of Qasem Soleimani, the general killed in an American airstrike. State television says millions have come to pay their respects. Some are stuck in underground subway stations. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has led the proceedings and at one point was seen weeping. U.S. President Donald Trump says he ordered General Soleimani's killing because he was planning attacks on American troops and diplomats.
But Friday's airstrike in Baghdad has raised tensions across the region. Iran now says it will take a step back from the 2015 nuclear deal with world powers.
In neighboring Iraq, Parliament has voted to remove U.S. troops from the country. About 5,000 U.S. military personnel are still in Iraq, mostly acting as advisors.
The rise in tensions is causing concern here in Asia. Japan's Shinzo Abe, who has tried to play the role of mediator between the U.S. and Iran in the past, has called for a de-escalation, while China has accused the U.S. of aggravating the situation in the Middle East.
我们敦促美方不要滥用武力，呼吁有关各方保持克制，避免事态轮番升级，尽快回到对话协商的轨道上来，推动紧张局势实现降温。
Over in the Philippines, protesters held an anti-U.S. rally near the American embassy in Manila. President Rodrigo Duterte has ordered his military to prepare to evacuate Filipino workers in Iraq and Iran if tensions escalate. There are about 7,000 Filipinos there.
Now, Simon Marks is monitoring developments in Washington, D.C. and joins us live now. Simon, is Washington prepared to be expelled from Iraq? And if so, what are the implications for security in the region?
Well, look, they've certainly had plenty of notice of the possibility of being expelled from Iraq because that vote over the weekend by the Iraqi parliament had been telegraphed for several days and weeks ahead of the debate actually taking place. But they didn't know that the Iraqi Prime Minister Abdul Mahdi was going to back the expulsion of U.S. forces. They were hoping to put diplomatic pressure on him to try and keep those forces present in Iraq, which is one reason why President Trump now says if indeed Iraq goes ahead and expels more than 5,000 American troops stationed there. Remember, these are American troops President Trump once vowed to bring back to the United States from Iraq when he was first seeking office back in 2015. The president now says he will sanction Iraq if Iraq exercises its sovereignty and says, I'm sorry, we simply don't want U.S. forces on our soil. In practical terms, the U.S. military is not prepared for a rapid drawdown of those forces. There's going to be a big discussion between Washington and Baghdad over the timetable for any withdrawals that take place. And we are already seeing the security implications of all of this because over the weekend, the US-led coalition announced that amid fears of possible military reprisals by Iran, they were suspending their operations fighting the remnants of ISIS in Iraq. So all of those operations in the hinterlands of Iraq that have been targeting the remnants of ISIS, Islamic State, those have now been suspended. A real casualty in security terms of President Trump's decision to authorize the assassination of General Soleimani and a threat to the White House narrative that the general's removal from the scene makes Americans safer.
Well, how much support does President Trump have for his actions and his attitudes towards Iran, Simon?
I think we're going to be checking the polling numbers that come in over the next few days, Steve, with great interest. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, is making moves to pass a resolution under the terms of the War Powers Act here in Washington to constrain the president's ability unilaterally to enter into any kind of conflict with Iran. Republicans up on Capitol Hill so far have publicly been standing pretty firmly behind him, but privately they are saying to the White House, explain to us the strategy here. Is this simply the president trying to get the country to stop talking about impeachment and start focusing on something else? What are these threats that President Trump has made now twice to attack cultural sites in Iran and to engage in the disproportionate use of force against Iran if Iran retaliates with military reprisals against American personnel or American assets? Both of those threats, if carried out, would, under the terms of the Geneva Convention, put President Trump in line to face charges of having committed war crimes. So this story has been moving so rapidly over the past 96 hours. I think everyone, Democrats and Republicans, have a sense of whiplash, and that sense of whiplash is shared by President Trump's top aides, who have been at numerous times over the past 4 days behind the president's curve in terms of getting out and publicly articulating what exactly it is he's trying to do.
No, thank you for getting us up to speed. Simon Mark speaking to us from Washington, D.C.
Well, NATO leaders will be meeting in just over an hour to decide its response to the tensions. Lucy Huff has more on what to expect.
I think there's clearly a huge amount to discuss here in Brussels today. An urgent meeting called over the weekend by the NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg, who spoke to the US Defense Secretary over the weekend. Clearly at the top of the list will be de-escalation, how to reduce the tensions in the regions following this unilateral act by the US last week. Of course, those developments in Iran, which is now threatening to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal and to expel US troops from the region. We know, of course, already that NATO has decided to reallocate its resources in the region away from the fight against Daesh, to training personnel on the ground there, to protecting Iraqi bases that contain coalition forces. I think ambassadors here in Brussels will be assessing the risk in the country, how best to protect personnel on the ground, but also continue the fight against Daesh. They will be talking with the US, particularly about how to offer a coordinated response to this act by the US President Donald Trump. They will clearly be looking at what potentially the exact nature of retaliation acts by Iran might be. Of course, Iran is using strong language over the weekend, saying that it will take revenge for this act by the US President Donald Trump last week. So lots on the agenda today, but key to this will be de-escalation, bringing down tensions in the regions, how NATO can offer a coordinated response to the activities last week.